I am an artist. Every morning I wake up and I say, "Hello, beautiful world," and then I set out to make it an even more beautiful place. I was born in New York 7 years after World War II ended, just 5 years after my parents saw the Statue of Liberty for the first time. That feeling kind of makes me feel so joyful that I'm crying, but I associate what my parents must have felt to be there and their newfound freedom. I was born 7 years after my parents emerged from an air raid shelter to see devastation all around them. Shattered buildings, shattered lives, families missing. I remember my mother's vivid description of people in the street cutting flesh off of dead horses because they were starving. So why do I devote my life to creating joy, beauty, and freedom? It's because my parents never let me forget how precious freedom is. Freedom makes the world your canvas. People often say that in order to create art, you must suffer. But actually, the opposite is true. I remember my first artistic inspiration was a feeling of profound joy. I was about 5 years old, and I planted some seeds on the windowsill in New York, which was kind of dark, but it bore string beans. The excitement of a seed bearing a fruit, flower, or vegetable has never left me. A seed contains the potential of a whole growing universe. Its vitality is exhilarating, and you see that energy and movement in my paintings. Painting satisfies me as nothing else does. It satisfies my intellect, my emotions, and my connection to other people. Being an artist can sometimes be a rather lonely job, so I love painting portraits. One of the models that you've just seen said to me that sitting for me was a combination of having tea with a dear friend and seeing a therapist. Color for me is a language. When I paint, I think thoroughly in color without any words. By intermixing pure colors, line, and form, I create the visual dynamics that people perceive as happiness, joy, and movement. But painting is essentially flat. So I began to think about how could I use my knowledge in 3 dimensions? Came to me. Architecture was the answer. When I first saw my house, it was derelict and it was slated for demolition. I knew I wanted to turn it into a living object of art. People have called my house a Gesamtkunstwerk, which is a rather fancy German word for a total work of art. Now there's color from room to room that makes a space dance just like color does in my paintings. In designing, I always consider the human physical presence in the architectural space. I've been able to use that in about 60 more projects. Once I finished the inside of the house, I moved to the outside. In the front, in the boulevard, there used to be like a patch of kind of dry, flat grass. I had no interest in maintaining or looking at. So now my boulevard blooms with 15 high-foot broomcorn, with eggplants intermingling with roses. What used to be a constrained space is now a place of beauty that provides joy, happiness, and nourishment for me and my neighbors. It looks beautiful, it moves beautifully, and it tastes wonderful. Besides my gardens being a place that brings lots of joy to people, it provides inspiration for my paintings. From each angle, nature provides thousands of relationships, which I then multiply and interpret on my canvases. My garden supplies about 140 different kinds of edibles. It's actually more like an urban farm downtown. From the garden bears fruits, and from these I create thousands of recipes and meals that I share with my family and friends. By taking photographs, I share the ephemeral and savory nature of my garden. It allows to bring to a greater audience the beautiful fleeting moments of the garden and of the morning light, which is my favorite light to photograph in. The working title of my cookbook is the artist's palette. But maybe it should be more aptly called, eat your colors, they're good for you. So on my last birthday, my mother called me, and I said, I'm in Savannah, Georgia, and it's so beautiful here. To which she said, but you're always surrounded by beauty because you create it around you. Joy is a very undervalued intellectual idea in the contemporary art world. It's seen as trivial, rather than a deep and heroic journey that can change lives. Through my work, I've been able to bring joy, happiness, beauty, and the experience of freedom to others. But you don't have to be an artist to turn your wildest dreams into something of a reality. Art changes the way you see the world, and the world is indeed your canvas. I was lucky enough to grow up knowing that freedom can change the way you want to see the world.